Senator Blunt, thanks so much for being here. Welcome to State of the Union. I don't think I've ever had you here before.
No, I've been able to avoid it up until now.
Well, let me ask you a question in that spirit. Does it bother you? Does it bother you when President Trump is not honest? Does it bother you when he says things that are clear, demonstrable falsehoods to the American people?
You know, he communicates differently than I do, or than almost anybody else ever has. I will tell you, though, I was in Missouri all week. I did news conferences in 10 different cities all over the state. I saw virtually every TV camera in the state during those 10 cities. Not a single person asked about President Trump. We were talking about year-round Pell, and we're in the middle of a pilot project where we're treating behavioral health like all other health, more money to National Institute of Health than ever before. And President Trump's part of that, but I think people are much more concerned about the economy and job preparation. And you know, there are plenty of chances for every reporter to ask a question about President Trump. Nobody did. And
well, I'll make up for it.
Not talking.
Let me ask you this. Does it matter if the President of the United States lies to the American people? The majority of the American people do not find him honest and trustworthy. That's a problem. Doesn't that get in the way of the agenda? And as an American, wouldn't you prefer to have a president who you don't have to worry that what he says is just demonstrably false, such as when he says two of the hostages that were taken that are in North Korea were taken under Obama, when two of the three were taken while he was president?
Well, you know, that Trump persona has not changed since the campaign.
Does it bother you, though?
It would bother me less if we weren't getting things done. You know, what the regulators are doing, I think the tax package better than I would have expected. I think the foreign policy, President was left with lots of problems. We'd had about 8 years where we acted like the United States of America was basically any other country in the world. And a lot of things got off track during that 8 years. I think the president stepped in a way that has helped that pretty demonstrably. Korea, what may happen in the next few days with Iran, all those are more important than whether the president remembers when hostages were taken in Korea. The important thing there is to get the hostages out of Korea.
I agree with you, but the Washington Post fact checker has identified more than 3,000 lies that he's told since he's become president of the United States. They say he's making up to 9 false statements a day. When President Clinton lied to the American people, a lot of Republicans got very upset about it, and Democrats said, well, the country's doing great. Let's ignore the fact that he's lying. Isn't there a more important issue here? Yes, it's great that the economy is doing better, and I understand what you're talking about in terms of his accomplishments and the deregulatory agenda that you like. But isn't it important for a president of the United States to tell the voters the truth? Isn't there something that undermines democracy when a president lies so often?
Well, I think the way the president communicates, whether he intends to mislead people or just doesn't have all the facts in his mind at the time, he is very accessible to the press. His team is very accessible.
He hasn't had a full press conference since February 2017.
How many times did he respond to the press last week? I saw a significant number of times where gets off a plane, gets on a plane, answers questions, lays out whatever he's thinking at the time. But the more important thing I would suggest is doing what you say you're going to do when you're elected president. And most of that, you're right, I'm supportive of. I don't think the stated trade policy is a policy that's very helpful to us, but we'll see where we get at the end of the road on that.
All right. Well, let the record reflect that I do think it's important whether or not a president tells people the truth. And I'm guessing that during the President Oprah administration, you might have some thoughts on that too. I do want to ask you about North Korea because you're on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and we've been told that there is progress in getting these detainees out of North Korea. What can you tell us about that?
I don't think I can tell you much about that. I can tell you that in the last 2 years, even in the last 6 months of the Obama presidency, North Korea has probably taken more time, and we've had more concern about that than virtually any other issue. We've let North Korea get to where they are likely in a very dangerous position vis-a-vis the neighborhood and the world, and something needs to be done about it.
I want to ask about your home state of Missouri, where the Republican legislature has called for a special session to consider impeachment for the Republican governor, Eric Greitens, who's facing 2 felony charges. A woman says she was bound and blindfolded, coerced into oral sex, threatened with a photo of the encounter as blackmail. The governor denies all of this. You're one of the few statewide politicians, and perhaps the most prominent politician, period, statewide, and you have not called for him to resign. You've kind of stayed out of it. Does this suggest that you believe Governor Greitens and his side of the story?
No, it does suggest that for all the time I've been in the Congress, one of my rules was try not to give much advice to people in Jefferson City. There's no question that if the governor did the things that he's alleged to have done involving this woman, it's reprehensible. But there's a process where all the facts get to be laid on the table. There's a court case that starts next week. As you just pointed out, the legislature is now looking at the action they could take. So there's both a judicial and a legislative remedy that I don't necessarily improve on by getting involved in it. And we'll see. I have confidence that both of those will lead to a result that takes all the facts and we see what happens.
What does your gut tell you about whether or not he's guilty of this? Because certainly a lot of other people, including Josh Hawley, who's running for the Senate, Claire McCaskill, whom he's running against, they've said they want him to resign. What does your gut tell you?
Well, my gut tells me when people elect somebody as governor, particularly people when they elect somebody as governor who spent his whole time running for office talking about how bad the current politicians were of both parties, that you need to let the process work its way out before you reverse what the people have done. I think both of those forums will likely put all the facts on the table and reach whatever result those facts lead to. I don't think we know everything we need to know yet, but I do think we know enough to be very concerned about what we do know.
All right, Senator Blunt, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.